Chapter 6 of American History Stories, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. American History Stories, Volume 1 by Mara L. Pratt. Chapter 6. English Explorers. But what was England about all this time? No more then than now was she the nation to sit quietly by and see another country carry off a prize. England was soon awake to the possibilities of the New World. She too sent out explorers, and set up her claims of possession. Among those who set forth were John Cabot and his son Sebastian, Sir Francis Drake, and Sir Walter Raleigh. It was in 1497 that the Cabots set sail. Sebastian Cabot had lived in his boyhood days in Venice, the beautiful city built so many years ago on little islands off the coast of Italy. The streets of this city are water, and the people ride up and down the streets in boats called gondolas, just as in our cities we ride up and down the streets in carriages. It must have been here that Sebastian grew to love the sea, for to the Venetian boy a gondola is what a bicycle is to you. Sebastian used often to say, "I think sometimes I am more at home on the water than I am on land, and to go back to my boat is the rest to me that going on land is to other men." Now when reports of the discoveries of Columbus began to attract the English people, the Cabots were inspired with a new zeal for exploration, and in 1497, fitting out the good ship Matthew, away they went, the English King Henry VII having given them permission to sail to all parts of the seas and countries of the East, and to take possession of all lands they might visit. Generous king, indeed, to give away lands that he had never seen, and that he was by no means sure were on the face of the globe. "We believe," said the Cabots, "that there is a shorter north-west passage by which we may sail to India, and we will go in search of it." Ah, that north-west passage! It has proved a sort of will-o'-the-wisp to sailors ever since, for every now and then, all along the years since 1497, some adventurous seaman has thought he was the man born to find the wonderful short route. But, alas, it was never found, and the fate of the sailors has always been much the same. If they have lived to return at all, it has always been with the same sad story of wretched suffering from starvation and cold. The Cabots met with little success on this first voyage, but in the following year, 1498, Sebastian Cabot, for his father was now dead, sailed out for the second time on a voyage of discovery, this time full of courage. "We only learned our way about the strange waters on our first voyage," said he, "but this time we shall bring back reports of discovery." Sailing off towards Iceland, he went on towards Labrador. Here he reports that he passed that island, and found the sea so full of codfish as truly to hinder the sailing of the ships. Salmon, too, came swimming down the rivers in enormous numbers, and bears flocked at the watersides to catch and eat them. There were no fishery bills in those days, and the American bears and the English sailors fished side by side with not a thought of quarrelling. Sailing on southward, Cabot discovered, to his great astonishment, that the coast was continuous for miles and miles, from Labrador to Florida. "This is not India," said he. "It is a continent, a new found land, lying somewhere between Europe and India." And so, while we remember that it was Columbus's daring that set all this zeal for search into motion, and brought about all these wonderful discoveries, and opened up to Europe the grand New World, let us give to the Cabots the lesser honour, but the honour due them, of being the first to bring back the report that out beyond the waters lay a new continent, a new found land. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7 of American History Stories, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Kalinda. American History Stories, Volume 1, by Mara L. Pratt. Chapter 7. Sir Francis Drake. But of all the gay, brave knights of Queen Elizabeth's court, none was so gay and brave as Sir Francis Drake. Like Sebastian Cabot, Drake had, as a boy, been as much at home on the water as on land. Indeed, perhaps it would be the whole truth to say this time that the boy was entirely at home on the water, inasmuch as his father had, when Francis was quite a little lad, moved his whole family, 12 children in all, into an old hull of a ship which lay wrecked off the coast of Kent. There they lived, year after year, a jolly crew you may be sure, until one by one the boys grew up and pushed off for themselves to join some cruising party up and down the coast. In all the years since Columbus had discovered America, for it was now 1577, the Spaniards had been pushing on across the new continent and up and down the coast, until there seemed a fair prospect of their gaining possession of the whole of the New World. More than this, the Spanish navy, growing stronger and stronger as the years rolled on, had for some time been making things generally disagreeable to the vessels of all other nations, even when out upon mid-ocean. "Does Spain propose to lay claim to the very waters of the ocean?" said Queen Elizabeth. "We shall see," answered Sir Francis gallantly. And he did see. Sailing away from England amid the cheers of his countrymen, loaded down with honours and buoyed up with promises of future glory on his return, Sir Francis Drake set gaily forth to teach the Spaniards a lesson, to explore new coasts and conquer new countries should opportunity present, but above all to teach the Spaniards a lesson. In 1572 he started for the West Indies, plundering every Spanish vessel he met on the way. He destroyed one whole Spanish town on one of the islands, and even crossed overland with his men the Isthmus of Panama, destroying Spanish shipping on the other side. From the top of a tree which he climbed while on the isthmus, he obtained his first view of the Pacific, and resolved, he said, to sail an English vessel in those seas. And in a very few years he made good his word. 5 years later, in 1577, while sailing down the coast of South America, driven blindly on by storm and wind, the Golden Hind, Drake's ship, reached one morning a point of high rocky land, the meeting place of the two great oceans, the extreme southern point of South America, Cape Horn. "'Tis an ill wind that blows nobody any good," said Sir Francis, or at least he might have said it, as he looked with surprise upon the strange view before him. "Let us sail up this western coast." At one place, where they landed for water, they found a Spaniard asleep, 13 bars of silver worth 4,000 ducats lying by his side. "We took the silver," said Sir Francis dryly when he told his story to the Queen, "and left the man." At another place they saw a Spaniard driving 8 sheep to Peru. Across the back of each sheep were 2 bags of silver. Without so much as an "if you please," Sir Francis's men took the silver, for they had come, you know, to teach the Spaniards a lesson. Again, entering the harbour at Callao, where 17 Spanish ships loaded with treasure lay at anchor, the Englishmen took possession of all the treasure, and sailed away as gaily as mischievous schoolboys. So they went on up the coast, taking the Spaniards everywhere by surprise. "Very likely," said this daring young captain, "since the two great oceans meet at the southern extremity of this great new land, they will also meet at the northern extremity. We will sail on northward around that point out into the Atlantic to our English coast." A very pretty little trip, thought all the crew, especially as, for the best of reasons, anything would be pleasanter than sailing back again through Spanish waters and past Spanish forts. So on they went up the coast, enjoying everything and looking hopefully for the northern point. But it grew so very cold, and the days grew so short, and the ice was so threatening, they were forced to turn back and take their chances among the Spaniards, who by this time were pretty sure to have recovered from their surprise, and to be on the look-out for the returning vessel. "But what need of sailing around Cape Horn?" said Drake. We can sail far out into these western waters, and the earth being round, we can sail through the Indian Sea, around the Cape of Good Hope, and up the European coast." And this he did, reaching England November 3rd, 1580, the first Englishman to sail around the world. How the church bells rang out as the ship entered the harbour! How the guns thundered, and how the people cheered! And Queen Elizabeth herself, delighted indeed at his success, conferred the honour of knighthood upon him, gave him the title of Sir Francis, and presented him with a coat of arms, a ship on a globe. The Golden Hind she ordered to be lodged in the Deptford dock as a monument to the courage and daring of the brave sailor. For years it stood there, and when its timbers began to decay, a chair was made from it and presented to the University of Oxford. And in the college building it still stands, as grand and as important as ever, ready to tell always its wonderful history. End of chapter 7.